Hey, what's up guys, it's WiseGuyVito here, and today I have another video for you guys. This will be a tier list video for primaries against the Terminid faction. As always, like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out and pushes me to make more videos like this, informative videos on Helldivers 2 content. Helldivers 2 recently just got a patch that buffed a lot of primaries, a ton of primaries, and so we will go through which ones are in a way better state than what they're currently at as far as like above average type of performance, and the guns that, yes, they were changed but didn't really move too much, and guns that desperately need changes still. And hopefully in the next patch, which will be at the end of the 60 days, hopefully they will fix these weapons. So let's get straight into it. So first of all, let's go over the tiers real quick. S tier is just an overall, just a solid weapon. Feels really good to use, and it delivers on that power fantasy. It's just a very, very good gun to use on the Terminid faction. A is above average performance. You know, like there might be some problems with it, or maybe just one glaring problem with it, but overall the gun still feels really good to use compared to an average weapon that, you know, it might feel good, but like it may be like just a tad underpowered. B tier is average. This is just the plain Jane type of guns. There's nothing really special about them. They just kind of feel average to use. C tier is below average, may have some problems, some bugs, maybe a bit underpowered, definitely needs to be fixed and buffed in the future. And then D tier is Dookie tier. I'm sorry, it is bad. This is a bad gun, or it's a gun that should even exist, to be honest with you, and it should be just an attachment. And I do think there is one gun in particular that no matter how much they buff, it will still be a bad gun. So without further ado, let's get straight into the tier list. So the Adjudicator, I do think, is an A tier weapon. It has medium armor penetration. They buff the damage on it. The recoil is weird, but once you get used to it, it's really not that bad of a gun. A lot of people are still calling this gun a really bad gun. I have no idea what they're talking about. It is a solid assault rifle. It's probably like one of the better assault rifles in the game, but for the simple fact that it has medium armor penetration, it makes it really good against Hive Guardians and the more tankier guns, even against Bile Spears as well. So like you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to flank them or anything like that. You can just, or using even like stratagem, you can just beam down those, you know, like those enemies. Like I said before, you know, in the first person, this gun actually feels really, really good, but in third person, it does jump around your hands a little bit. But once you get kind of used to that recoil, like it's kind of a gun that you just have to use over time and get better with it. And once you get better with it and know how to control the recoil, and because like it is somewhat predictable in my opinion, once you get used to it, it's actually a very, very good gun. So definitely use the Adjudicator. It's definitely one of the better guns in the game currently, and I do think it's an above average gun in its current state. If it had better handling, it probably would be an S tier gun. But, you know, the main complaint that I see a lot of people make for the Adjudicator is not necessarily the power or the ammo. It's just its handling. So if its handling ever gets buffed in any way, shape, or form, it might be an S tier. But for the time being, I think it's an above average gun. The Blitzer 100% is an S tier gun. This gun keeps on getting buffed to patch after patch after patch, and I don't understand why. Whenever it first came out, it was probably an A tier gun. It was actually pretty good in my opinion. It was a little slow. The arc bolts were kind of inconsistent, or they were just inconsistent overall, because like they would hit either bushes or bug bodies or whatever. But they gave it full auto. It fires faster. The arcs are now consistent now. Now it does a stagger effect, or like a stagger buildup now. So now it can stagger like bigger things. Like this gun is effectively just a support weapon at this point, and it's a primary, and it's very, very good on bugs because bugs are going to be close range on you, like they're going to be swarming you, and this can kill multiple bugs at one time because it actually does pretty decent damage as well. And it has unlimited ammo, so you can just keep on shooting it and just literally just hold down the trigger and just keep shooting it and shooting it and shooting it. It's a very, very good gun. Definitely use it. You know, with the stagger force, you're able to stun like the more bigger, tankier enemies and stuff like that. It's just an overall, just a solid weapon. The sleeper has now become the meta, in my opinion. So definitely use it. It's definitely one of the better choices in the game. The Cookout, I've now seen a 180 of this gun. People saying, or like some of the more bigger YouTubers saying this gun is A tier or even like a B tier gun because, you know, like it doesn't do enough damage or whatever. No, it's good, okay? It staggers, it pushes people back, it does a dot damage, plus it does decent damage already. You can use this gun at range. This is like the all-arounder, just good shotgun on Terminids because of the burn effect to it. It's a very, very good gun. You know, anything that has stagger and dot damage to it is automatically going to be good because you're going to need that against Terminids whenever they rush you and swarm you, right? So that's why I think it is an S tier gun. The one downside to it is probably just the reload speed, but that comes with running a pump shotgun, right? Is that it's not going to have necessarily a like a magazine to it. It's, you know, you're gonna have to reload, you know, one shell at a time, but that's probably good anyways because, you know, like it has a fantastic ammo economy because of that, right? Overall, just a solid gun. It's actually pretty good on bots too, believe it or not. But this is Terminids, so I'm gonna have to talk about Terminids. But it's a very, very good shotgun, and I don't know why people are starting to downplay it now and say that it's not that great, but it's very, very good. Currently against Terminids, definitely use it, definitely bring it, and definitely bring it for those fire builds because the dot damage on this gun is actually fairly very, very good actually. The Diligence counter sniper, I don't think it's necessarily S tier, but I do think it's A tier in the fact that it's very, very good against alpha commanders, very good against nursing spewers and bowel spewers. Basically any type of like medium tankier enemy, this does very, very well. I think where it kind of falls short is like if you get swarmed by hunters. I think that's where it kind of falls apart at. But overall, this gun is like really, really good now. If not, it might be a better Dominator, but I still think the Dominator offers a little bit more on just explosive damage, and I think explosive damage is actually really, really good still in Helldivers 2. But the counter sniper diligence is very, very good. It can over penetrate too, but that's kind of situational. So like if you do have a mob of hunters, if some of them are lined up, you can kill like one or two of them at a time. You know, so it is a very, very good gun. I believe it can 2-tap alpha commanders' heads, by the way. Going back to the whole alpha commander thing. And like the gun just feels really good. It just has a different play style. Like you just can't be up in front of the enemy, right? You know, if you get swarmed, you might need to bring like a redeemer or maybe like even a crisper. The crisper's pretty good now. Just something to kind of like handle the horde that's in front of you. But I mean, if you play kind of like more of like a sniper play style, then this gun is actually very, very good to use. The breaker shotgun I think is probably in low A. Just simply because I'm kind of debating on putting it in B, but for the time being I'm going to put it in A because it does have some utility purposes to it. So people thought that the breaker was going to be absolutely bust overpowered whenever they said that they were going to revert it back to pre-patch. It's good, don't get me wrong. It is way better than what it was before. It has a stagger to it. It staggers really well. It's got its ammo back, has an extended mag to it. I think the problem with this gun right now is that I think people were thinking that it was going to be a spray and pray weapon, and it's not. It is a single target DPS type of primary, and it's really good against bowel spewers, nursing spewers, alpha commanders, like those type of more tankier bugs. But if you're going to use this to like kill like hordes of enemies, it's not really that great to use on it because the ammo is still not that great. But it is really good for a single target, like I said before. So for that reason, that's why I'm putting it in A tier. If the spread was like a little bit better, maybe it might be good against hordes. But you know, for the time being, I mean, you know, it's still good. It still kind of feels bad though, because the recoil changes kind of feels bad on PC. I don't know why. It didn't used to feel this bad before, but now it really feels bad as far as like the recoil and the handling goes. But overall, like it's still decent. Like it's still good. But you know, I think it's probably somewhere in A. It might be B tier, but I'm putting it in A in the time being. The Defender is basically just a better Liberator. You know, you can one-hand it. You can shoot backwards with it while running away because of one-handing. You know, the defender will always be the better liberator in every single way. Sure, it might fire slower, but who cares? You know, it literally has the same stats as Liberator. It just fires slower and does I think 5 damage, like, you know, like 5 or 10 damage more. Overall, I think the Defender's still great. It's still a solid weapon. There's nothing special about it. It's just kind of just like the better Liberator, and that's it. So for the time being, I'm putting an A tier. Diligence, I actually think this is an A tier weapon as well. It does very, very good against mobs at medium range. So if you see a mob coming, you know, kind of coming towards you, or kind of off in the distance a little bit at a medium range, it actually does very well. It can one-shot, headshot hunters in the head, but that's kind of inconsistent. I still think this weapon should probably one-shot hunters to the body, and then it'd be in a way better state. But with the amount of ammo that you get for this weapon, like, it just feels like a very solid weapon, like, overall. One thing that I thought that the pre-patch diligence was really lacking in was damage overall. Like, for example, the Verdict, which is like the deagle pistol, was doing as much damage as the diligence, right? Which was, in my opinion, piss poor and kind of a slap in the face to this weapon. But now they buffed the damage. It feels way better to use now on Terminids. If they gave it enough damage to one tap, you know, hunters to the body, then it probably would be an S tier weapon. But for the time being, I'm putting an A tier. The Dominator is probably still going to be S. It's just good against tankier enemies, just overall. The amount of stagger that this gun does too is insane. You know, yes, it's slow. Yes, it doesn't have a lot of ammo to it, but what it brings is power, and you need power against the Terminids, especially whenever they're swarming up on you, especially against those more tankier targets. The Eruptor, this is probably going to shake up, and people are going to get mad at me for this. I think this weapon is still mid. I think it's below average. So they brought the shrapnel back, so it is better, technically, right? I just think that the shrapnel looks funny whenever it explodes. It kind of like the pieces float out. Like, you can actually see the pieces, like, just kind of like drift off, and it's very, very slow. And I kind of wish that they just put the orbital shrapnel back on it, because in my opinion, the Eruptor was not busted overpowered at the very beginning. I think the only thing that could have been nerfed at the, you know, pre-patched Eruptor, like at the very beginning when it first came out, was the magazine size. Because or sorry, not the magazine size, but like how much you had in reserve. You had a ton of ammo for the Eruptor when it first came out, and in my opinion, you know, they should have probably nerfed it on that end and just kept it the same, because the power fantasy was there. But it does have its identity back, you know, so I can't really complain about that. You know, now after, you know, 3 or 4 patches, whenever they figured out that maybe removing a gun's, you know, core attribute, the identity of the weapon, was probably not a good idea. But now the gun just feels really mid now. Like, it does do somewhat good against hordes, but like, I should be able to one-shot, you know, with a well-placed, you know, shot now, okay? I'm not saying it needs to be one shot to the body to an alpha commander. A well-placed shot with the Eruptor should be able to one-tap, and it's not doing that currently. And I think that they need to look at this weapon a little bit more. Definitely give it like a few more buffs, but for the time being, I feel like this weapon is not that great. It kind of feels bad to use currently. It's slow, doesn't have a lot of ammo, plus it feels underpowered to use. You know, in my opinion, that's, you know, why use it whenever you have this weapon, which we'll go over now, the explosive crossbow. It is an S tier weapon. It is basically pre-patched Eruptor, because it can handle hordes, it can do really good damage against alpha commanders, and it can kill nursing spewers. It can kill all the tankier enemies in the game and anything with medium armor. It does very, very well. You know, this is basically pre-patched Eruptor. So I don't know why they couldn't just make Eruptor better whenever you have the explosive crossbow. Plus the explosive crossbow feels good to use. Handling is fantastic on it. It's a one-handed weapon, so you can fire it while running backwards. You know, it's a no-brainer. Why take the Eruptor whenever you can take the explosive crossbow? You know, to me, it feels like a no-brainer. But for the time being, you know, definitely the explosive crossbow is definitely one of those S-tier weapons in the game. Like I said, fantastic for mobs and fantastic for the more tankier enemies on the Terminator front. The Incendiary Breaker, if you have a supply pack, it's S tier. But if we're not running with stratagems to kind of support it, in my opinion, I think it's an A tier. It needs its magazines back. If it had its magazines back, it'd be an S tier weapon for the time being. So that's my opinion on the Incendiary Breaker. The Liberator, I guess is like the carbine. Okay, so this gun is definitely better than the Liberator, bar none. Okay, if you get used to the recoil, it's actually better because it kills things really, really quickly, right? Because of the rate of fire to it. Feels good to use, in my opinion. You have to use the recoil. It's kind of like the Adjudicator, but there's nothing really special about it, and I think that's the problem with the gun currently. If it had like a bayonet or something on the underbarrel part of it, I think that it probably would be an A-tier gun at that point because it has some sort of distinct thing about it. For the time being, it does as much damage as a Liberator. It just has more recoil and it fires faster. That's it, right? It definitely needs some sort of buff to it, I think, like a little bit more of a buff to it. A bayonet, something to kind of make it different. And currently there's really nothing to make this gun different, and it feels average because of that, because there's no identity to the gun. I love actually running this gun now because it feels really good to use. If we're going based off of feeling, it probably is maybe above average, but since the identity of the gun is kind of boring, I think a lot of people are going to overlook this gun. But in my opinion, it's definitely more of like an A-tier gun, but I'm gonna kind of take my personal feelings out of it and kind of put it in this kind of like B-tier section because it definitely needs something to kind of make it different. Liberator Concussive, I do think is an A-tier gun, and the reason why I think it's an A-tier gun is because while yes, it doesn't kill outright, and I know a lot of people want a gun that kills outright, it's fantastic for CC. It's fantastic for crowd control. 60 drum magazine to this thing, and you are just stunning everything on the battlefield, and that's actually good. That's actually very, very good, because especially on Super Helldive 10 difficulty, and you have a bug breach that comes out. Let's say if you don't have any stratagems online, you're stunning and pushing everything back for your teammates to kind of set up and then like engage. If it could kill, it probably would be an S tier weapon. In my opinion, it'd be overpowered at that point because you have a 60 drum mag gun that now kills and that can stun and push things back. But you're not using it to kill. You're using it as a support weapon. And once you understand that it's a support weapon, you might not have that many kills at the very end of the game, then you'll start to realize, okay, this is the type of role that I'm kind of going into currently. The Liberator Penetrator, I think, is absolute dog shit still. This gun just needs to be either removed from the game completely and put as an attachment for the Liberator Penetrator. The Liberator, just the regular Liberator, just make it as an attachment. I had this opinion last time in our last tier list pre-patched. I thought this gun was not that great. They buffed it and it still doesn't feel great. At this point, why am I bringing the Liberator Penetrator whenever I can just bring the Adjudicator, right? If I can use the recoil of the Adjudicator, I'm doing more damage, plus I'm getting medium armor pen, right? With this, I'm getting some versatility with like some of the attachments, right? Have like a better scope, but like even then, like the Adjudicator has kind of like a scout rifle scope already. So yeah, why would I even use the Liberator Penetrator whenever the Adjudicator's a thing currently, right? It's just not that great. Like, it feels garbage to use, and until they kind of do something to this gun to make it better, there's just no use of me using it. Like, it still kind of feels bad to use. The regular Liberator, plain Jane gun as always. They need to, in my opinion, I think the Liberator is actually in a good state, okay? They need to buff the family overall, like even the tenderizer still. I still think the tenderizer needs a buff, but like we'll get to that here in a few. But as far as the regular Liberator goes, I think it's fine where it's at. I don't think it needs any more buffs. I just think that the other family, or like the other Liberator families, I think they need to be more distinctive against the Liberator, and I still think they have that problem currently where the more Liberator family guns, They aren't distinctive enough. They aren't powerful enough. They don't feel different enough, right? The Liberator is like the basic gun. It is your standard issue rifle you get in Helldivers 2. It needs to feel average. In my opinion, they need to stuff buffing it because it's in a good spot. People need to move away from it, in my opinion, and try out more of these interesting, fun guns to use, right? And Arrowhead needs to look at more of these, more of the like Liberator carbines, Liberator penetrators, the Adjudicators, the tenderizers, and kind of give them more of a distinct feel to them going forward. Like currently right now, I feel like the Adjudicator and the Concussive are probably the only distinctive guns currently on the Liberator tree. You got CC, you got high damage with the medium armor pen, right? I think that's fine, right? The Liberator carbine, it's like I said before, it's just a high rate of fire, more recoil, and that's it. Like there's nothing really special to it, and until they do something special to it, it's like it's gonna feel meh. But like I went on a big rabbit trail here, but the Liberator, regular Liberator, I think it's fine, but it feels average, and it should be average because it's the standard issue weapon that you get at the very beginning of the game, and you shouldn't have an overpowered gun at the very beginning of the game. It should just be kind of like a progression thing, right? So I think it's fine where it's at. Plasma Punisher's S tier, good crowd control, can kill. Like what's there to say about the gun, right? It's just good stagger, like just overall, it's just a very, very good gun. Pummeler, A tier. It's basically it has less rounds than the concussive Liberator, of course, but it can kill. So not only can it CC, but it can kill. So if you want a gun that has good stagger CC damage, or like CC, or like crowd control, and can kill, use the Pummeler. If you want something that like you'll sacrifice damage on, have way more ammo, and have way better crowd control and stagger, use the concussive Liberator. So those are the two different ones here, and I think they're in a fine state currently. The Punisher, I do think, is S tier, and the reason why I think it's S tier is because it does a ass ton of damage. It can stagger. It can deal with alpha commanders really good. It can deal with bile spewers. Funny enough, because like even though they're like their medium armor pen, it can just chunk through it like no problem. Nursing spewers. It can handle mobs very well. Like overall, like it's a very, very solid gun to use. I still think that the Cookout's probably better. Even though it doesn't kill as fast as the Punisher, the Cookout has CC, and it has like crowd control with the stagger, of course, but it also has dot damage, whereas the Punisher, it just damages outright. So overall, I think the Punisher is definitely S tier against the bugs. The Purifier, definitely D tier. This gun just needs a complete rework to it. Supposedly, from what Pilostat said, is that it's going to fire as fast as the Scorcher, but you'll be able to have the opportunity to charge up the gun for a bigger blast, whatever that means. Hopefully it's not just going to be, it does CC, because I wouldn't like that too much. I wish that they would just give the charge up just way more damage. I think that would make the gun interesting and cool, but they're going to make it to where it fires as fast as a Scorcher, unless you want to, as the Scorcher. And it's supposed to have some sort of charge up mechanic to where it has a bigger blast to it. The Scorcher's probably going to be A tier. It's kind of dropped off for me just a little bit. I do think the Scorcher might need more ammo in the future. And then once it has more ammo in the future, I think it probably would be an S tier gun. The sound of the gun sounds great. Like the change of sound of a gun, this last patch, and I think it sounds actually fantastic. Definitely needs, like I said, like just more ammo to it, and like I think it'd be fine. But overall, like I think it's a fantastic gun against Terminids. I just think it needs more ammo. Sythe, I think it's actually very good now. Funny enough, but it's only good against like mobs. It burns everything now, and I think that's very, very good for the Sythe. If it did like a little bit more damage, I think it's fine, but overall I think it's actually like a pretty good gun to use on the Terminid front. The Sickle, very good. basically like you never run out of ammo, fantastic horde clear. You know, it's not really good against tankier enemies, but you know, as a gun, it's just better against more like the horde type of enemies. Slugger is probably C, and the reason why is because like even though it has a good stagger to it, it's very inaccurate because they put spread on a slug, and I don't understand why they did that. They need to remove the spread to it. Actually, they need to just revert the entire change they put like 2 patches ago or like a patch ago, when Freedom Escalation came out. And then the gun might be an A tier weapon at that point. It won't be as good as the Punisher or the Cookout, but right now this gun feels ass to use currently. The Breaker and Spray and Pray. Okay, this might surprise a lot of people, okay, but I think this gun is actually an A tier weapon. I was using it the other day, and this gun slaps hordes like crazy. And actually it's pretty good against alpha commanders too, believe it or not. And it does very, very good against shriekers, like hordes of shriekers that are flying in the air. Like this gun is the ultimate horde killing weapon. But I think where it kind of falls short is probably the damage, because it really doesn't do good against nursing spewers. And the more tankier enemies in the game, it's not medium armor penetration, but against hordes, it does fantastic. It feels really, really good to use. Because like this gun, you know, historically throughout, you know, Helldivers 2 lifetime has been either a D or C tier, at best C tier weapon. But now it's actually pretty good now, and so I'm actually kind of pleased with how this gun is currently running right now in Terminids. The Knight basically feels average to me now. It's definitely a bullet hose. It definitely feels better to use, but it still kind of feels average, you know? Nothing really special to it. Tenderizer, I kind of want to put it in B. It does do good damage. I think the only problem with it is that it needs more ammo. Like they gave it 5... It gave it its 5 ammo back in the magazine, but it needs more. It needs more reserve ammo. It still needs more reserve ammo to it, and it would feel way better. It would actually be a pure upgrade to the Liberator. But currently, right now, like I still think it needs more ammo in reserve, and it'd be probably like an A to maybe even S tier gun at that point. And the Torture. The Torture is S, and the reason why it's S is because you can kill chargers with it. You can kill bottle spewers with it. You can kill alpha commanders with it. You can kill roaming hordes with it. It has 20 less ammo than the regular flamethrower support weapon. And like I said before, it can kill chargers. Like, actually fairly quickly, it can kill chargers. So it is a fantastic weapon to use as a primary. And it definitely, I think this is probably the best weapon against Terminids currently. And the reason why is because it opens up build diversity. Where, you know, like most of these weapons up here kind of opens up to build diversity, kinda. The Torture definitely opens up to build diversity, because since you can kill chargers now with the Torture, you can bring heavy machine gun if you want to. You can bring a machine gun. You can bring stuff that's kind of outside of the meta whenever it comes down to the Terminid front. And I found that to be very, very good, and I wish that they would come out with. Now the only downside to the Torture, right, is that it's not long range. So if you have like a ton of shriekers up in the air or whatever, it's going to be kind of hard to deal with them, right? Because they're just flying in the air and you don't have that much range to the Torture. But overall, like, because of like the downside is like you have to be like close range whenever using the flamethrower, which is fine. You know, like that's no big deal. I found this weapon is very, very good though, because fire damage is very, very good against Terminids. So, and I did have a build, by the way, you should definitely check it out, which is the True Flame build. Okay, definitely would check that on my YouTube channel, where I use not only the Torture, Crisper, and the flamethrower, and all my stratagems are fire as well, and you get insane amount of kill count on missions. Insane amount of kills on Terminid Super Helldive missions. So definitely check that video out. Anyways, this is my tier list. You guys let me know what you think down below in the comment section, and you know, like kind of what you guys think about, you know, like my tier list and where I'm right, where I'm wrong, and you know, you guys let me know what guns have you been using, because I'm interested to kind of see what guns you guys have been kind of, tickling your fancy with that are really, really good to use, or which are not really that great to use. Just let me know in the comment section down below. Anyways, like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.